Hi, welcome to Camp Happy Mail. So glad you decided to join me today. Today we're going to use a piece of digital paper to make a card. This is Wildflower Butterfly Flight by Julia Laird. She's on YouTube as Senior Susie Stamps, and she designed this in Canva. It's quite beautiful, as you can see. I wanted to decide what part of this I wanted to make into a card because you could split this into 4 quadrants and get 4 cards out of it. And I chose that lower right-hand one that's in the pink box. So I cut my paper to just have that piece so that I could focus on that. So I thought that this piece needed just a little bit more color. I wanted the flowers to stand out a little bit. So I pulled out some Copic markers. You can use any kind of medium on this, whether you want to use crayons or colored pencils or regular markers or watercolor paints. If you're going to use watercolor on it, I suggest you print it out on watercolor paper. I did just print this out on regular copy paper. Not even Copic marker paper, not even cardstock. It is just plain copy paper. The markers that I'm using, I have a set of 3 here. This is B00, B02, and B04. That's a light, a medium, and a dark shade of the blue. And I'm just doing some basic Copic coloring. I started out on the outside of the flower with the lightest, which is the B00, and then I moved to the inside with the darkest, which was the B04. And now I'm taking the B02 and I'm just blending those together. And that's actually the B00 then blended together. But anyways, just real basic Copic coloring, nothing too hard. I'm using a lot of the lines that are already on the flower as my marks for where I needed to have shading at. So if there was lines, that's where I put some color. And then I just filled in the in-between with the lightest shade. The B02 is going around on the outside now just to give that a little bit more definition to it. And again, just really, really simple Copic coloring. And like I said, you could use any medium to color this. I just thought that 3 shades of a Copic marker would be good to do what I wanted to do. And now I'm just using the darkest shade. This is the B04 to darken up some of those shadows a little bit. So I'm going to just continue to color this until I get it to where I want it. There are no rules for this. You can color your images however you want them to be. I don't know that you would ever see a blue flower like this out in the wild, but I just thought that blue was a pretty choice for this and that it would go nice with the pinks and the purples in the background. Okay, and now I decided that, maybe I want to color that back one too. So same process. I'm starting out with the light color. And then I'll go in with a darker color. And we'll start from the center and work our way out again using the little cheater lines on the image to just color where the shading would be. And it gives it a little bit of dimension when you do that. When you put your light colors on the outside of the petals and you put your darker colors on the inside. And then you leave the lightest version on the actual petals. It makes them look a little bit 3-dimensional. And again, just back and forth with these 3 colors until I get it how I like it. And I tend to fuss with this a little bit. I go a little bit overboard sometimes with my coloring. And now for the centers, I decided to do a pink color to match the background. And this is R82, or R83, 85, and 87, I do believe. And that's it. That is my Copic coloring. And now I need to decide what the rest of this card is going to look like. I didn't really have a plan in mind when I started this. I just knew I really wanted to use this paper. And I am making a sympathy card because I did need a sympathy card. And although I should keep some of these on hand, I really don't. But anyways, so I have a little box and it has some scraps in it, things that were cut from other cards, like extra little tags or extra frames where pieces were cut out of them. So I dug through that box and found something that I thought would match up with this card. That turned out to be this little pink frame and that little tag up there that we're going to use to stamp the sentiment on. So I'm just now sizing this up to make sure that this is what I want it to look like, and then we're going to move on. As I was getting ready to assemble this, I decided that I wanted a little bit more black on this. I know stems aren't normally black, but because there were already some black leaves on this, I thought it would be okay if I added some more. So I just took a regular black, it's a watercolor marker, and I'm just coloring in some of the leaves and the stems just to give it a little bit more black around the frame. And yeah, I think that just adds a little something extra to it. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to stamp our sentiment. The sentiment set is from Simon Says Stamps, and it's just a basic sentiment. I believe it says with sympathy. I wanted something just very basic on the front. I didn't want to really take away from the front, and I wrote a nice message on the inside of this. So I am using my Misty, and I am using some Memento Tuxedo black ink to stamp it. And that's it, just quick and easy. So now we're going to go ahead and assemble this card. That is an A2 size card. It's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm just going to score it in the middle. And I'm going to start to adhere my pieces down. Now, because this is on regular copy paper, I opted to not use liquid glue on it because it was so thin and I didn't want it to be wavy gravy bubbles all through it. So I opted to use tear and tape. Now, mind you, tear and tape is not my first choice anymore anyways for putting together cards. I used to use it all the time, and I used it all the time in scrapbooking. And I found over time that things made with the tear and tape tend to fall apart. Unfortunately, the adhesive on the tape gets dried out and things fall apart, and that's not really cool, not really what I want, but I didn't really have an option with this. Again, I didn't want to use the liquid glue because I didn't want it to seep through, because this is just plain stock copy paper. It is super, super thin. You can see the markup lead through the back of it super easy. So I am using lots of tear and tape on this in hopes that it doesn't come apart quite as quickly. That's a tongue twister. So now I'm just going to pull the edges off of this and get ready to adhere this down. Sometimes the edges of the tear and tape are a little bit hard to get a hold of, especially when you have just cut your fingernails like I had just done. So yeah, we're going to struggle a little bit, but we are going to get it all off of here in a second. Okay, yay. Now we can put this down. For the frame part of this, I am going to use liquid glue on this because it won't be as wavy gravy. This is a thicker piece of cardstock that I used for this frame. And again, this was a scrap piece I had left over from another card. And that is Barely Art's liquid glue. So I'm just going to put the frame down on top of there. Easy peasy. I think it just gives a little bit something extra to have it framed. And now I'm going to put some Stampin' Up Dimensionals on the back of my sentiment. And we're going to put that into place at the very top. And that's going to be it for our card. So thank you for hanging out with me today to make this one. And I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye.